Evening, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Golden Goal Fantasy Football Podcast. We're back to our roots today, going over our fan team, both the half season and full season game. And as usual, I'm joined by Sam. How you doing, mate?
Yeah, very well, Tom. How about yourself?
Yeah, I've had a busy day of work today, so nice to get a bit of fantasy chat and chill out. Really, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, that'll reinvigorate you, mate,
I
for
hope
the
so.
rest of the night, or completely send you to sleep. One or the other.
So yeah, usual score really. I think we did this last time as well. Just go over our season long performances in teams and the half season game. And I think, well, it looks like we've both decided to play our wild card in that season long game as well. So we'll take you through our wild cards and our thinking behind some of our picks as well. And hopefully you'll find that useful to inform what you might be doing this week as well. So first up, I'm going to flash up my season long team. Well, it feels like this game week's gone on forever, doesn't it? Watford obviously have this double game week, but the final game is being played on Saturday. So I've currently got Ben Foster sitting in goal, praying to God that he doesn't play against Burnley because I've got David De Gea there sitting on my bench with 7 points. Trent, Cancelo, Diaz, they didn't really have the best weeks themselves. Southampton gave Man City a really good game. And yeah, Man City didn't keep a clean sheet, and I didn't get any attacking returns from those two. In Trent, whilst Liverpool looked quite good in the first half against Palace, he just didn't get any attacking returns, unfortunately. So yeah, quite a disappointing performance from my defenders, but yeah, they're the best defenders in the game, right? So I won't be transferring them out anytime soon. And then my midfield, I've got Bernardo Silva, Jota, Martinelli, and Bowen. Silva didn't really do much. I think he played his 90 minutes, but that's about all I got from Silva this week. Diogo Jota, I believe, got an assist against Palace, so yeah, I'll certainly take that. Martinelli, yeah, he was quite disappointing. I saw all of the non-penalty XG and expected goal stats, etc. They were predicting that Martinelli would do really quite well against Burnley. So looking at his 6% ownership, I was really quite excited about him, but just didn't perform. I think it was 0-0 in the end, wasn't it, that game? Trying to
Yeah,
remember
it was.
back.
Yeah.
So yeah, got his 90 minutes and a clean sheet, but unfortunately no more than that. And yeah, a rare blank for Jared Bowen as well. And then up front, Antonio and Ronaldo both blanked. And then the most disappointing call in, well, probably my fantasy career so far. I don't think beforehand it was a bad decision at all, right? Dennis has had a really good season. He had a double game week against Norwich and Burnley. Watford looking pretty good going forward, so I decided to captain him, and then he got sent off. So yeah, my captain this week sat on minus 2.6 points, and he's suspended for the next double game week fixture. So what can you do?
I'm about to join your club, mate, because I'm in the same boat.
So yeah, there's not many positives to take from this team really. I'm trying not to be too downbeat about it though, because I don't think any of these players are bad picks. I just think I've had a bad rub of luck really. I expected West Ham to do a bit better against Man United. That was surprisingly a low scoring game, to be honest. I felt like West Ham would give Man United more problems than they did. But yeah, what can you do? That's my week really.
Yeah, I agree with you, mate. I think you've got the best kind of certainly the best two defensive assets there. Diaz is not really that far behind. He's an excellent asset. You know, your midfield's packed there. You could argue potentially Bernardo Silva's little purple patch is over and he could be up for the chop. Maybe, well, we'll probably come over that. I'll go over that in a minute. I love Martinelli as a pick. I just think, yeah, Martinelli, great little player, but there's so much to pick from in that midfield. Again, moving forward to our wild card in a bit. So, yeah, I don't think wasn't a great week, was it? I don't think anyone did exceptionally well, and that Dennis is just that massive. You have to laugh
Yeah, what
because if
can
you
you
don't
do?
laugh,
Yeah,
you'll
yeah,
cry. Yeah.
exactly. What can you do? But yeah, there's nothing really great to talk about with my team, so I'm happy to move on to yours, mate.
Well, we're going to go even quicker on that case because I had a yeah, I sort of yeah, I've needed a couple of weeks out really on this. Is it on the screen? Is it?
Yeah, yeah, mate.
Yeah, so I've made a similar call to you with Foster in goal. He obviously gets COVID. What makes it even worse is he's back in training, isn't he? So we might not even get those, 7.3. points from De Gea because he might actually end up playing against Burnley. Who knows what's going to happen? But right now, I'd just take Ben Foster on the bench and grab those De Gea points and run. Similar, exactly the same with you with the back three, mate. Not concerned whatsoever. If those three blank, they blank for most people as well, or most of the engaged managers. So can leave that one. I had a little bit of a mare in the midfield, really, didn't I? I think I can't remember now, it's a few weeks back, but I took a hit to get, I think, Mason Mount out, who, looking at your bench on your previous one, scored
I didn't even talk about him because
pretty
I was so
well.
annoyed that I didn't pick him. But yeah, he did all right this week and he was on my bench.
And I think I did him for a flick or a move for Coutinho, expecting a double game week. And I also brought in, I shouldn't really bring it up, but we're all about transparency, aren't we, Tom? I also took a hit to get Rafinha in, thinking he'd have a double. So not only do I enter in a -4, get rid of, I think it was Mason Mount in there and some other bench fodder. Mount obviously returned quite nicely, and Rafinha and Coutinho not only blanked, but also didn't get a double. So, yeah, I kind of had an absolute Western supermare there, really. And yeah, I'm going to learn some lessons from that moving forward. That was poor move, really. Jota obviously got the assist, had Jota all season, same as you with Bernardo Silva. Certainly will be looking past him for my wild card. Went with Watkins and Dennis, stuck the armband on Dennis, so much the same as you, just to hammer home an awful game week and some actually bad management decisions from me. Well, it's always bad in hindsight, isn't it? If they both had doubles and it could have been much better. A really poor week. And then you look at my bench and it has 7.3 from De Gea, 3.1 from Antonio, and Rudiger with a 6.3. So all in all, some really, really poor decisions and a really crap game week in start to finish, really. And just waiting for that final nail in the coffin, really, with the Watford game versus Burnley.
Yeah, we're quite similar with our teams, to be honest, aren't we? And yeah, well, you can't really do much about this. I mean, yeah, your Rafinha and Coutinho on paper, I think, were good picks. Rafinha, well, he's a good pick all season, isn't he? You just got unlucky, just like me, and we shouldn't really try and take too much from this.
Yeah, I shouldn't have taken the hit, but you know what it's like. And we've played fantasy games for years, and it was just prior to the deadline, I was just like, I'm going to go, yeah, or close to the deadline, I'm going to go for it. And then I saw win that there wasn't going to be the double, and I was like, it still could work out. It could still like at least kind of break even. It just ended up being a really, really poor decision. Um, but I've made those moves in the past and they've paid off. So yeah, I don't want to beat myself up too much about it, but yeah, not a great game week at all, Tom.
And that moves us on then. So yeah, it's not. I've not decided to wildcard as a result of my poor game week. I've done it purely because, well, if we just flash to my team very quickly, I've got 4 or 5 players in my team that I need to get rid of, really. The likes of Martinelli, Bernardo Silva, I'm not too overly keen on keeping him. Then I've got 3 Chelsea players and Dennis as well. I think I've had my time with Dennis as well. That's 4 or 5, 6 players that I don't want in my team. And for that reason alone is why I've done my wild card. I think, my opinion, you shouldn't really play a wild card based on fixtures and etc. I think you should play a wild card if your team needs major repair and
Major surgery.
That's the position that I'm in at the moment. So
Yeah, I'm along those lines, mate, with that. I think it's a question later on actually about the wild card. If you can line it up with some fixtures, then brilliant. But yeah, if you're looking at major surgery, which would cost you minus 16, 20, 24, whatever it may be, then it's time to hit that button.
yeah, and you can certainly, yeah, and then you can set yourself up nicely longer term, right? And I know we've got a turning point this week where Chelsea go away and Salah comes back, and I think that alone might be enough to, force 4 or 5 transfers within the people's teams and play the wild card. So I'll just go through my picks. I wouldn't say this team's even set in stone yet. I'd say 9 or 10 of these players definitely are. And yeah, there's a few bits that I could move around, which I'll talk about. So I've gone for Sarr in goal from Wolves, purely because he's one of the best goalkeepers in the game, and he's what I could afford with the budget that I had. I think him and Ramsdale are pretty comparable. But I was just a bit sceptical because Ramsdale's got a couple of, well, at least one blank game week coming up. So I've just held off on Ramsdale with the blank in mind and gone for Sa. But it might change, right? Sa and Ramsdale, I think, are very similar players, so I could go for either. I've not changed my defence. That's the three roles that haven't changed. Like I said, I think they're the three best defenders in the game: Alexander-Arnold, Cancelo, and Diaz. Obviously, Man City, the strongest defence in the league, and Cancelo's just on an absolute blinder. Same with Trent. I think you just have to pick the two of them. And then Diaz, like I said, Man City, strongest defence in the league. I think Diaz is a really solid pick. And then in my midfield, I've gone for Son, Salah, Jota, and Bowen. To be honest, I think on paper these are probably the four best attacking sort of midfielders in the game. Son plays pretty much 90 minutes every week, mostly up front alongside Harry Kane, so he's not even a midfielder really. He's a fully fledged striker. So yeah, I think he's one of the best picks. And yeah, it's a blessing that he's counted as a midfielder, I think. So I've gone for him. I don't think Salah needs any real explanation. You know, he's the best player in the game. I can show some stats later on, but he's nearly got twice the points of any other player. And I think Liverpool in a couple of weeks' time have a double game week as well. So I think if you're without Salah at the moment, you'd be quite worried. So yeah, I've brought Salah back in. Jota, to be honest, I'm a little bit sceptical about Jota because I know Liverpool have signed this Luis Diaz guy. Not sure how good he is. I can't confess to have seen him much, but it just adds some more competition into that position, doesn't it? So Jota could well become a Robertson or someone like that, but I've gone for Jota for now. And then Jared Bowen, he's just had a blinder of a season, isn't he? And I think it'd be a mistake not to pick him at his price. And then my front three, I've gone for Antonio, Broja, and Ronaldo. Antonio I don't think needs much introduction. He's been one of the best fantasy strikers this season. I feel like he's just about to hit some kind of form again. I know he blanked against Man United, but he seems to be getting in amongst the goals a little bit more again. Broja, purely because he's so cheap, and I was really impressed with him in the last couple of games that I've seen. I know he didn't actually score against Man City, but he pretty much did everything. But I think he had one goal disallowed for offside. He was literally like an elbow offside. Yeah, and he ran. I think they played Diaz and Laporte at the back, didn't they? And I think he ran the two of them completely ragged in that game, to be honest. So I've been really impressed with him. So I've picked him. And then my third striker is probably the most like flexible position I've got at the moment. Really, I've stuck Ronaldo in there for now, with the thought of there being a double game week in the very near future. But I'm half tempted to switch him for Fernandes because if Man United have a double game week, I'd question whether Ronaldo would actually play both the games, and I'd be more confident in Bruno doing that. So yeah, I've just got a bit of thinking to do on that third striker spot. Really, equally it could also be Harry Kane. I think I've been really impressed with him in the last few weeks. I think he's found his form. So yeah, we could go Ronaldo, Bruno, Kane for that third sort of premium spot.
I really like your thinking there, Tom. It's kind of it's a wait and see on a couple of positions there, isn't it? There's not too many. I don't think there's too many standout options up front. I think it's a little bit of a problem area.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree.
And I'm not of the actual same opinion as you'll find in a minute of Antonio. Like I am of the opinion of how good he is. I just think he looks tired at the moment. Obviously, his played volume of games has been way greater than I've seen from him ever. I've heard he's done all these dietary changes and stuff, and it's clearly made a difference. But I'm not sold on him at the moment in his current form. But with lack of other options there, we're not spoiled for choice, are we?
It's a bit bleak, isn't it? Alternatively, I guess I could have two. I could have two strikers, and I know Joe Gelhardt's down there at 4 million as well, so he could just sit on your bench for all season, just as your third striker, and you can use the money elsewhere. That's definitely another option.
Fantasy changes quickly as well, doesn't it? 1 minute we're sort of struggling around for strikers. The next thing you want 3 premiums in because Kane and Lukaku's firing, and you're suddenly faced with a different prospect. I think what I've learned with all the fantasy formats is you've got to be ready to to be able to pivot out on a sixpence and move formations and have money in the bank or potential moves ahead. I know the COVID hasn't helped matters with the fixture rearrangement. My head's fried from it. I just try and take kind of a couple of game weeks in advance, but you have to be able to kind of drop any favored formations, I think, and just look at the bigger picture and go, right, who is playing well at the moment, who's got good fixture runs, who's on a purple patch, and then be able to pivot straight away and go, right, Kane's got a good run now. Boom, I've got, obviously not got to get him in, but that could be the move I'm going to make and and change it up. I think that's such a key aspect of fantasy.
Yeah, I've picked Foster again for my troubles on my bench just because he's probably the cheapest potentially playing goalkeeper. So he's just a bit of backup if Saar doesn't play.
Yeah.
I've gone Jacob Ramsey because he's 4.5 million and he seems to be playing pretty much every game. Semedo, he's probably my favourite pick of the Wolves defence, and I've gone for a Wolves goalkeeper because I know they're good defensively, so it makes sense to have Semedo. And I know he's got a big red box underneath him, but Adam Webster, I think, is one of the cheeky defenders in the game. He's priced at 4.5 million, and I know Brighton have a double game week coming up, and they are quite good defensively, right? And I think for 4.5 million for a Brighton defender is a good pick.
Really like that, mate. I've just written him down because I don't think I've got him drafted at the moment, albeit it's my first draft. I think that's a really sound pick, and I've picked him in other formats, and I think you've just rationed out a really good reason why we should be looking at the Brighton defensive assets.
That's it really for my wild card. I gather you've done the same, mate, and done a hit your wild card button as well. Are you happy to talk through what you've done?
Yeah, I've done a loose draft like you. The same reasons, mate. I needed major surgery. I had like double or triple Chelsea. I think James Rudiger to double, Mount at one point, and then just 3 or 4 other players. I just wanted a whole change, basically. So this is how I'm currently looking at his initial draft. It will change actually, but I didn't want to change it tonight because I'm not entirely sure of how it's going to look. But I'll talk you through some of my thought processes on how it could look, and I think it might come up again later in the conversation when we look at a little bit of fixtures and things like that. So I've actually gone Man City triple at the back. I'd seen this sort of theory from Paul McNulty in Sky actually about picking purely Man City defensive assets. And I think although Sky and FanTeam are obviously different, he's got a really, really good point. There's no one outstanding forward asset at the moment from Man City that I feel you just set and forget in there. Like a Cancelo is at the back. You just said that they are the strongest team defensively at the moment until Man City win the league. Ederson's going to start all the games. Obviously, if the league gets wrapped up at some point, then I'm going to obviously change things around. The results actually did us a favour, I think, for pushing for Man City players because, with the drop of points and then the Liverpool win, it just squeezes that gap a little bit. So with that in mind, I've gone triple City defence. Ederson in goal at the moment, Cancelo and, of course, Diaz. Cancelo and Diaz for the same reasons as you. I just really, really like having a triple up there or potential triple up. They concede, obviously, then you've lost 3 clean sheets, but Man City are solid there. And yeah, I think they're going to keep a lot more clean sheets in the upcoming weeks. The caveat with Ederson there is he probably doesn't get a lot of save points, but I've still looked at his.
I was just looking here, and he's the highest scoring goalkeeper in the game, even without those.
Yeah,
so yeah, completely understand the pick.
Yeah, yeah. I was just about to go on to that point, and so that's why he's in there. Trent, don't need to talk about Trent. Son, mate, exactly the same reason as you. Like, I've seen he's back in training. He's fit. He's a striker in midfield, 90-minute man, assists, shots, goals. Superb player, links up really well with Kane. You can only see a change in Tottenham under Conte. It's starting to click a little bit more. They're not, in my eyes, they're not world beaters. They will lose to the better teams, but with a favourable fixtures and stuff, I think Son and Kane will score actually really well. Salah, yeah, you've talked about Salah. I'm not going to mention anything about that. There's almost no point having you have to have him, but there's no point. You don't ever gain on anyone that's that good, do you? Because everyone who's engaged has them in. Jota, Yeah, I can see your point at the moment on Jota, but for the returns that he gets for his price are absolutely insane. I think he's nailed still. I think we've had this conversation already. Klopp typically doesn't bring new signings in straight away, and they certainly don't start games. Diaz, I'd be so surprised. The only person I've seen Klopp do that with is Thiago Alcantara. But Thiago Alcantara, when he came to Liverpool, was already a world class central midfielder. Anyone else, Fabinho, Robertson, they don't start straight away. So I'm not entirely worried about Jota's position. I think the one person that would put that under threat is Bobby, and I think that's always been the case. So there's no more threat to Jota than the one that was already there, which is a return to fitness, Bobby Firmino. So I've still gone with Jota. I will monitor that situation, and I think much like you, if we see that Jota's minutes are reduced and his returns are dropping, then I think I'm going to go for Andy Robertson. We chatted about Robertson and his returns on the pod on the Sky Pod the other week, and his returns have been fantastic, haven't they? From an assist perspective, the little bit of competition at left back with Simicast is clearly making a difference for Robbo, and it's bringing his game back to where it once was. So he's certainly on the watch list if something happens with Jota. But as you said, a triple Liverpool with the double of Norwich and Leeds coming up in game week 26. You know it's advantageous to have triple Liverpool there. Jarrod Bowen, same reasons as you. He's just been an outstanding asset this year. Added more goals and assists to his game, much more consistent, regular starter at the moment for David Moyes. Really, really like him as a player. Yeah, really, really good pick. Rafinha, I think I've always been put off Rafinha on FanTeam for the price, but it's just ticked along so nicely, isn't he?
I think he's worth the money, and he plays
He's
obviously
worth the
90
money,
minutes
yeah.
every week. He's Leeds' his best player. Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree.
So, yeah, he's made my sort of top five in that midfield there at the moment. But we'll talk about a few potential changes in a minute. And this is where I'm struggling. I don't really want Antonio, if I'm being brutally honest. And I think I've just jotted down a couple of potential kind of Antonio replacements. I think DCL could be a good one. Maybe not straight away, but I think he's one to watch. And Everton will have a couple of games to be replayed, won't they, in future weeks?
I think they'll. I do think whether defensively they will or not, because I don't think they've got much quality in terms of players defensively. But going forward, I'd like to think they'll look a bit better under Lampard. I think they'll just have a new manager bounce, personally.
Yeah, and DCL is going to. He's a quality player, right? He's also a 90-minute man. Usually, he's just returned from injury. I wouldn't be put off bringing DCL in at some point. So he's certainly on my have a look at the fixtures, see what I'm thinking like. Also, I had him in my previous side, and I might go back to him instead of Antonio. Again, it's just another potential option. Is Watkins.
Mm-hmm.
I noticed that Gerrard had stuck Ings on the bench and actually played Watkins straight down the middle. And I think as a fantasy asset, that's where you want him. Whether or not, he continues as the main striker is we don't know. But I think seeing him as that central striker and Coutinho and Buendia either side of him, I really, really like the thought of that. Will he always get 90 minutes? That's the question. If Danny Ings is on the bench, I mean, that's going to be, you're chasing a game or he's not playing extremely well or overly well or whatever, then he might be the man to go. So that's obviously something to bear in mind. But that's kind of my thoughts on a couple of striker replacements. Also, what's the lad called at Palace? Edouard,
Yeah.
the forward. Yeah, he tempts me as well. He seems to be starting for Palace,
nicely, hasn't he? Yeah.
Yeah. And I just think if you haven't got an abundance of options, you're not actually going to lose out by going for someone like this. If your midfield and defence is fairly well set, and if it's a cheap striker, it means you've got pivot money again, unless, of course, you spend all your funds in your other sort of 9-10 players or players on your bench. That potentially gives you a cheap striking option that's actually returning points. So he's really on my list, and they've got some good fixtures. So he could be one to come in, potentially. I've gone with Foster on the bench, just like you, Tom. Same reason. I've actually got King there. I don't think I'm going to have King, by the way. I think he will almost definitely come out. It's just what went in on my first draft. I think I'll probably downgrade, potentially, and free up some money for elsewhere. Semedo, well, you touched on Semedo. They're really solid defensively, Wolves, and I think I'm gonna have a few tricky benchings for a few weeks with deciding who to leave out and stuff. And then Tomiyasu, really, really like him. I think he comes up in our little points per million a bit later on as well. So like a good asset when Arsenal have got a obviously good fixtures. Didn't want to go with Ramsdale, but I feel like if you're not going with Ramsdale, then it's having an Arsenal defender on your bench at a really nice price is a great idea for decent squad depth. Like you talked about, there's potential maybe there for Webster to come in and start on that bench. So there's a few decisions to be made, and that final one is exactly what you said. Do I go with Bruno for the double? Or I like the thought of that, but it would mean a little rearrange of the side and working out where I go from there moving forward. So although this is initial draft, plenty to ponder in the next few days.
I think the right way to be about it is, pick a team and then be willing to be flexible depending on how the fixtures fall and how you're feeling on the day. I completely agree, and I think our teams are quite similar and we've got quite a similar mindset. I think it's the right way to go about things at the moment.
Yeah, with you on that, mate, for sure.
You just spoke briefly there about the points per million per game stats. I'm going to quickly flash that up because it feels like a good time to mention it.
Yeah.
So this is brought to us by our good friend Frank, FF Stuff. I definitely recommend checking out his website, ffstuff.co.uk. It's got lots of different stats for all the fantasy football games. And then there's a fan team section as well, which I've just taken this from. And this just shows a view of points per game per million. Basically, this shows you the best value players in the game. So, the most points you get per game per million. And what I've done is I've done a quick filter on the graphic. I've selected players that have played at least, I think, 14 or 15 games. I use that as my filter for, players that are nailed. And there are some really quite interesting picks in here. Top of the list is Aaron Ramsdale. I think he's probably, it's the same in Sky as well. I remember on our Sky pod we talked about him, but he seems to be this season the best value player in all of fantasy. Close behind him is Sa from Wolves. Just thinking if there's any interesting names there. See Rodri from.
Kieran,
Go for it, mate.
I was going to say Kieran Tierney. Now, I made a massive case on the Sky overhaul for Kieran Tierney, and I've not mentioned him once here. Quite surprising to see him there as well. So he's been ticking along really, really nicely. I always think Kieran Tierney, and I think injuries and 25 minutes and subbed off with a calf injury or something, like he's just had so much of that in the past. But I'm clearly getting proved wrong with that, and he's got to be someone on that, on that watch list if you're sort of wildcarding or looking for potential defensive assets.
Yeah, and we were talking about like the likes of Bernardo Silva, etc., not getting attacking returns and just getting the 90-minute points. But it looks like Rodri's been doing that all season, and he's one of the best value players in FanTeam at the moment. He's 5th on this list, only 5 million, and 0.91 on this rating. I didn't even think Rodri is an option, but I'm always convinced to go with him looking at this, to be honest. But I just think there's so many options in midfield, right, that there's probably better players than him. But interesting stat.
Again, like with FanTeam and Sky, the subtle difference is we'll get the bonus of tackles and things and passes in Sky, so he's a really, really good Sky asset. I had overlooked him a little bit in FanTeam, having said just moments ago that I don't think Man City midfield assets are the greatest option. He's come up, trumps in the points per million. But I still stand by that. I think based just off what you've said, I think there are more explosive options and that money could be distributed better. But he plays a lot of games for Manchester City. He's the glue in Pep's side, isn't he? And I think that's probably one of the reasons why he scored really, really well. And he does come up with the odd goal. He scores a header or quite a bit of a rocket from distance or whatever. So, he's a good player.
Yeah, unfortunately, if you're listening to this on Spotify, you don't have the beauty of looking at it. But please visit FF Stuff's website and you can find the stats there easily enough yourself. And if you're on YouTube, I won't go through them all, but feel free to pause it and have a look at the stats and see if there are any players that strike your fancy you might not have been considering before.
Anyone else there that surprises you?
I'd have to say there's quite a lot of defensive midfielders there that I didn't expect to see, like obviously Fabinho and Højbjerg.
Kovacic is on there as well.
Conor Gallagher. I'm probably not going to go with him, and I'm probably going to regret it, to be honest, because he will just continue to tap away at points all season. He might even be a better pick than the likes of Jota, who might get dropped for a few games. I don't know.
I've had the same thought, Tom. I just feel like I'm overlooking him a little bit, and he's just going to continue to do like a Stuart Dallas of last season and just keep coming up with goals and 90 minutes and assists and like key contributions and all the stuff that fantasy assets get. And we're going to overlook him. It could be he's one of those where you think it's going to start slowing down and then he pops up with 2 goals or something and you just sort of bang in your head deciding why you never just set and forget for the whole season at his price.
Anyone else there that you're looking at? I think that covers it really for me. I'm surprised really to see as many Arsenal defenders in there. But yeah, I can see
they've been solid, mate, haven't
yeah,
they?
They have.
They've been solid. Alex McCartney and Lucas Fabianski surprised me a little bit, but I guess West Ham have been really good.
There's a lot of good goalkeepers, aren't there?
Yeah,
this
McCarthy's
season,
Alex McCarthy's a real kind of that really has sort of caught me off there. I wouldn't have expected him to be in there, but again, Southampton have looked better recently, haven't they? So, and this is the point I think I made you earlier about that being adaptable and seeing changes within the football and then being able to adapt to that and then make those necessary changes. Someone that's not particularly very good at one point doesn't mean they're not going to become a good asset a little bit later on down the line. But yeah, apart from that, I think we've covered kind of some of the people that we're interested in there for sure.
All right, mate. So next up, we were just going to quickly run through how we're doing in the second chance game. So I didn't mention my rank before in that full season game. Actually, I'm actually conveniently 3,000th in both games. So in both the season long and half season, I'm ranked 3,000th. So around the 3,000 mark. So pretty average. But in both games, I think I'm within the money. On the full season game, I'm making 20 quid at the moment, and this half season game, obviously we all got a free entry, and I'm winning a fiver so far. So can't really complain about that. Let's have a just quick chat through my team. So I've got De Gea in goal, who obviously got a nice clean sheet against West Ham and a few saves on top. Trent, Laporte, Cancelo. Laporte really saved my banking in that defence with his goal against Southampton. What can you say really? But between him and Diaz, it's almost identical. But I've gone for Laporte because I know you've got the auto sub rule in this game, so he's a bit cheaper than Diaz. And by picking Laporte, you always guarantee yourself a bit of that Man City defence. So yeah, really happy that he got a goal this week. I made one transfer. I can't actually remember who I had in before last week, but I brought in Phil Foden. Similarly for the mindset behind Laporte, if you pick Foden, you basically guarantee yourself a Man City midfielder. Because you've got both Grealish, we mentioned Rodri before, you got Grealish, Bernardo, Rodri, all cheaper than Foden, who will either, if Foden doesn't play, one of them will, right? So I went with him for that reason. Unfortunately, didn't do anything against Southampton, but I'm confident that for the rest of the season he'll tap away at some points. Like pretty much everyone, 76% of the game, I've got Jota. He got me a nice assist against Palace. And then I actually still had Mason Mount in this game. I didn't take him out for this week because I thought Tottenham was quite a favourable fixture and he did really well. Then I had Bowen and Rafinha. Yeah, again, I'm a bit frustrated with Rafinha because I picked him at the start thinking he was he'd start off really well, but just been unfortunate the last couple of weeks with Rafinha really. But he's going to stay in my team all season. I think we both got similar thoughts around Rafinha. He's a really good player, Leeds' his best player, and I think he'll score well for the rest of the season. And then my two strikers, thankfully I didn't captain Dennis in this team. I didn't do much better. I got Josh King, but at least he's got one more game left and he's not suspended. So all eyes on Burnley, Watford, and hopefully he can get something in that game. And then I've got Ollie Watkins as my next striker. This week nice, I think I'm going to take a hit. I'm going to do a -4. I need to bring Salah in, so I'm going to take Mason Mount out for Salah, and Watkins is going to go to Nelson Semedo from Wolves, and that will be my -4. And I think that Watkins, I know we talked about him being a pretty good option, but he's probably the most expendable player in that team because of his price and the points he's been returning, and I need to get Salah in, and I think Salah is worth a hit, so that was my thinking anyway.
Yeah, we're not entirely sure on Salah's kind of will he, won't he, are we at the moment? I'm just going to watch that one personally closer to the time. I think you're right with what, like, it's just the options up front, isn't it, are really quite poor. And so you're looking to try and maximize what you can up top. Obviously, with this format, you can, with the second half of the season game, things are done a little bit differently than the season long game where you don't have to have, you know, loads of strikers basically. So what you've said makes sense.
Yeah, I don't think there's much else to talk about there. Then I'll quickly move on to how you're doing, mate. I've got your team on the screen now.
Yeah, so going off my ranks, my season long rank is about the same as you, 3K, and then I'm about 3.9 on this, so basically identical to you. Just trying to sort of dust myself back down from having some fairly decent ranks earlier in the season. A high of about 250, what feels like a few game weeks ago in the season long, and just had a really poor run. Made a few bad decisions, but just think I had a bit of bad luck as well. So yeah, just trying to dust myself down and go again. Yeah, De Gea in goal. Happy days, nice clean sheet. Obviously, had Laporte in there. Got the return, lovely. Cancelo and as we know Trent, yeah, nothing happened, but they'll stay in there. Like you, Mason Mount in there. Jota, yeah. Bowen and Rafinha, yeah, a little bit disappointed, like I said, about the season long one, but they're going to stay. Bergwijn, I think he came in for. I think I had Lucas Moura in there, but with the ruling, I don't think Lucas Moura played. Is that right?
Yeah, I
And
was
then
going to
that's
say I
why.
don't think you'd have picked Bergwijn out of choice. So yeah, I imagine he came in for
So I
Lucas
had.
Moura for you.
So to remind anyone that doesn't know why I went with Moura, it was kind of that little bit of a maverick pick, but there was a double game week at some point, wasn't there? Which after we submitted the team, the North London derby, so the Arsenal Tottenham game got cancelled and he only ended up going down to the single anyway. Um, so yeah, kind of again, bit of bad luck, bit frustrating, but I had seen mutterings on Twitter that that was going to get cancelled, so probably should have known better, but went with it. And then same as you up front, at least we didn't go Dennis. At least I'm not in minus
Yeah.
points, mate. Decisions moving forward are very similar to you, really. Like Mo Salah has to come back in there. Obviously Mason Mount, Chelsea are expendable at the minute. So yeah, I think I'm just gonna watch and wait on that one and just see what I need to do to get Salah back in if I need to do that. If I don't, then I'm not too sure at the moment actually what I'm exactly going to do with that. But I think if I don't go Salah, I might look at Bruno.
Yeah, I know it seems strange to say it, doesn't it? But Bruno obviously has a double game week coming up. So you'd argue over the next, Bruno has 3 fixtures to Salah's 2 over the next couple of weeks. And there's even a chance, obviously, that Salah won't come back in time. So that's a really viable option is to go for Bruno for the next couple of weeks and then move him on to
You
Salah.
just you just don't want to lose. You just don't want to be without Salah for one game, do you?
No.
It's horrible. I've had it. I mean, I rarely have had it, but yeah, you're just kind of you're wincing, aren't you? Because like you said, he's just an absolute point scoring machine. So if Salah's back, I'll work away to get Salah back in, and then not much else will change. I'm not entirely sure what my funds are in the bank there, but I think I left enough in to be able to get the Salah move going when I need it. So yeah, be a little tweak to get Salah back in. I'll probably update it on the Twitter if anyone is interested towards the end of the week.
Nice one, mate. I think next up, I know we've spoken a lot about fixtures and I haven't actually presented a clear view of what the fixtures are. So unfortunately, again, if you're listening to this on Spotify, I'll do my absolute best to talk you through this graphic on our screen at the moment, but it's going to be difficult to talk you through a fixture grid without actually being able to see it. But all I've done is gone on to the legend that is Ben Crellin's Twitter page, and he's linked to Google Doc in his Twitter bio, and you can filter it just on the Premier League fixtures. because I know there are a number of spreadsheets that he's put out, and this isn't a shot against Ben Crellin. I couldn't dream of being able to do what he does in terms of fixture scheduling, but I just find it so difficult to understand. But thankfully,
Yeah.
on his Google Doc, he's done a nice simple view where you get just the Premier League fixtures. So it will show you who's got a double game week on which week, who blanks, and there's also a really useful picture there of the unrescheduled postponements as well. And one thing that caught me off guard, and same to you before we actually started this podcast, is I know Arsenal have got a blank game week, but they've got the same number of games to be rearranged as Burnley. They've both got 4 games to be rearranged. So, certainly wouldn't rule out an Arsenal player because, they'll eventually catch up with fixtures.
Yes, mate. Sorry. Yeah, exactly. Albeit we've got a couple of difficult fixtures in there, haven't we? If you have a look at it, it's still a high volume of games there.
But yeah, the key things to note really is there's a couple of teams with a double game week in game week 25. So obviously we're going into game week 24 this week, but next week both Brighton and Man United have a double game week. The Man United double game week is against Southampton and Brighton. And then, as a result, Brighton now have a double game week with both Watford and Man United. So it certainly makes both the Man United and a Brighton option really, really attractive, to be honest. That's why I've picked Webster in my wild card. I think a Man United option is a good pick, in my opinion, for the next few weeks.
Yeah, I've kind of got slightly different views. I think Brighton picks actually a really, really viable option. Watford and Manchester United. I think Brighton have proved all season how solid they are, and I think that's why I'm just not convinced on a. Well, not say convinced because I'm obviously talking about Bruno and stuff like that, but I think obviously with Bruno, he's probably going to play both full games, and there's points just in it for that, isn't there? And then if he gets any returns, it's a good pick. But the Brighton game for United, I think, is going to be I can't see there being more than a couple of goals, and by that I mean maybe one each way. So I'm thinking Ronaldo, like you said, will he play both games? I don't know. Things aren't clicking there, and obviously there's been more stuff in the news about Manchester United players. It just doesn't bode very well for coming back and performing, does it? They haven't been great anyway. I mean, De Gea has been the standout player, so I'm in this predicament where don't I with Manchester United players, and Bruno is a proven quality fantasy Premier League asset. Let's not make any bones about that. He's been superb over the years. Cristiano Ronaldo speaks for himself. So there's 2 quality assets there. It's whether they're going to turn up and perform in these double game weeks. And like you, Tom, I've made the mistake of kind of trying to fit players into double game weeks because they've got double game weeks, and actually thinking the fixtures aren't that favourable. And I've come out with Cancelos and things like players like that outscoring the player with double game week. So that's really in my back of my mind for that as well. So I think there's a bit of food for thought. Had that been Norwich and Burnley, it'd have been a different matter. But I think there's a couple of challenging fixtures there.
Yeah, fair enough, mate. I can't really. I know I've given my opinion on it, but yeah, the different opinion is what this game's all about, isn't it?
Yeah.
Just the only thing that doesn't appear to be updated on this one is I believe there's an extra fixture for Liverpool that slipped into game week 27. So that question mark
26, I think.
26. Oh, so that of course. So Liverpool have now got a double game week in 26. And that's against Norwich and Leeds. So, where we talked about being absolutely terrified of not having Mo Salah, I mean, a week where he's got Norwich and Leeds in a double, I mean, you have to bring Mo Salah in for that week, don't you? Providing he's not injured, of course, which I guess could happen, but yeah.
I think not only that, you want triple Liverpool for that.
100%, yeah.
I think if you know Jota's going to start, we don't know this. If Jota's going to play both games, Jota and Salah and Trent are probably the best 3, but if you want to take a little bit of a punt, the Trent, Robbo and Salah move. Either way, have Salah in, stick the armband on him as long as he's fit, because that's probably what everyone else is going to be doing. That's 2. That's when we talk about, like you said, when we talk about favourable double game fixtures, that is 2 right there. I mean, I've seen people in the FPL sphere talking about triple captaining Mo Salah. I know we're on FanTeam here, but the 2 obviously interlink very well. That's the level of double game week that is, and I think just doesn't. Yeah, for Liverpool attacking assets, it doesn't get any better than that, does it?
No. But yeah, I think that's the headline news from the fixtures really, and you can pause this at your leisure, have a look. But yeah, like I said, quite a useful thing on here is the unrescheduled postponements where, Leicester as well have got 4 fixtures to
Yeah.
be rearranged, and they're
You got any? You got any interest in any Leicester assets, Tom, for fan
not
team moving
not
forward?
not right now. The one I would consider is James Maddison because he seems to just
Yeah.
be in red hot form at the moment. And potentially, I think Jamie Vardy he might be injured at the moment. And if he stays, well, I say if he stays injured, I don't wish an injury on a player, but someone like Patson Daka or Iheanacho,
Yeah.
Daka
I thought you
definitely
mentioned Daka.
looks the real deal. I played my free hit a couple of weeks ago in FPL, and it was when Vardy was injured, and for a period of time I captained Daka, and then he had a fixture change. But yeah, I think looking at Daka, he's the real deal. So I wouldn't look too far from him. He might be that extra striker that comes along and becomes an option.
I was going to say Daka. Yeah, for that Leicester run. Also, Tielemans, I think he's a good fan team asset. Potentially on penalties when Vardy's not on the pitch, 90-minute man, and
Yeah,
depending
good show.
where he's playing in that system for Rodgers, he can chip in with goals and assists and things as well. Um, yeah, it's quite a few games there, isn't there, for rearrangement, and definitely things to keep an eye on should you be thinking about moves and wild cards and things later down the line. I think, Tom, I'm just looking at that, going back to Eduardo or whatever he's called at Palace, the striker. There's a couple of nice games there, isn't there, for Palace? Norwich and Brentford.
Yeah, well, not just Edouard, but I think Gallagher's. I keep going back to him as well. I really
Yeah.
do think he's an option. He's not in any of my drafts at the moment for that wild card team, but yeah, Norwich and Brentford. I know he's got Chelsea. We obviously won't even play against Chelsea, will he? So that's one to consider. But yeah, Norwich
Yeah,
and
and I think,
Brentford, great fixtures.
and then you just stash him on the bench for the Chelsea game.
He's like
In
six
FanTeam, it's
six
not.
point two million, so leaving him on the bench for a week's not the end of the world.
In FanTeam, it's not a problem, is it? And if we're wildcarding, we're going to have fairly solid benches at that point. So
You're going to have a
yeah, there's a
playing
real
player to come
rationale to
in.
have him
Yeah.
in. And then they've got Burnley and Wolves after, which are not bad fixtures at all. So yeah, we're kind of talking ourselves back into Gallagher there, aren't we?
Yeah, I think so. Certainly, yeah. Well, like you, like me, we'll both be thinking about our wild cards right up until the deadline, I think. But yeah, lots to ponder looking at those fixtures.
Yes, mate, absolutely. And I think with just keep an eye on Ben's page the minute kind of fixtures are announced and stuff, because Ben will update that, and you'll get a clearer picture of the future game weeks, because we will be having quite a few doubles, kind of from, well, yeah, you can see it on there, like 31, 32, 33, so and onwards. So definitely worth keeping an eye on.
Yeah, like I said, I can't recommend enough. Don't. Well, if you're like me, I just got completely dumbfounded by his big spreadsheet that he tweeted. The best way to go about it, in my opinion, is click on the link in his Twitter bio. There's a Google Doc, and you can click a button in there that simplifies it to only show the Premier League games, and you get this nice simple table to work with. So yeah, I'd recommend
Yeah,
doing that to simplify it
it's
for
his
yourself.
blank and double game week schedule, isn't it, with the fixture formatting? That's what it's called on the bottom. So definitely worth checking out.
Last up, mate, we've had a few questions from our good friends on Twitter. A couple of things we haven't discussed. So first up, our good friend Shahed. So yeah, Burnley have obviously made a good new signing in Weghorst. Personally, I think he's actually probably an upgrade on Chris Wood. But yeah, Shahed's asking a question quite a few other players are asking, to be honest. With his signing, is that a player you consider for fantasy, for FanTeam?
Yeah, currently, right now, with the lack of strikers, concern is how's he going to adapt in the Premier League? Is he actually going to play from the off? That's the two big questions there. We obviously saw a little bit of him at the Euros. We know he, like you said, he seems like a Chris Wood upgrade. I think for me at the moment, it's one to watch. But if you're on a little bit of a punt, a wild card punt, and you've got a third striker spot available, and you're thinking, I want to take a little risk on someone with quite a few fixtures coming up. Yeah, why not? What do you think, mate?
Yeah, I completely agree. For me, it's a wait and see. I think even as a punt, it's a wait and see. Um, but yeah, he looks, looking at the stats, and I haven't got any to hand, but he looks like I said, an upgraded version of Chris Wood. But obviously, the stats we've got for Weghorst are based on the Bundesliga, so you've got to
I
apply
think
like a.
if anyone wants to check him out, I think Dan Cox put up some stats of his Bundesliga games in comparison. I think maybe I can't remember who it was to, but there was some stats on him on Dan's Twitter page. So if you want to go and check that out, check it out. Yeah, I think you're right, mate. He's a watch. He's a wait. Burnley don't score many goals. Let's not forget that. Like, we're not going to suddenly see Burnley turn into Man City, and he's not going to clean up 20 goals this season. I don't think so. It's a wait and see. But I don't know, if you've got a space there and you want to go with a punt, then I
Well,
can
yeah,
see a,
and
a
on that
reason
point,
behind it.
even before he left, Chris Wood wasn't banging the goals in himself either. So,
No.
and Weghorst and Wood are not the type of strikers to create the chances for themselves. It relies on the rest of the team to get the ball to them in the box, or to lump the ball up to them. And Burnley just haven't been doing that enough, and that's why you haven't seen much from Chris Wood. So yeah, one to watch, but I won't be doing it straight away.
No, same for me.
So yeah, Lucas, our good mate Luke, asks us, if Salah isn't back for this first game week on a wild card, which premium midfielder would you be choosing as a placeholder? I'm happy to attack this one first. It's touch and go still, isn't it? If Salah's going to be back, to be honest, I think we'll be left in doubt right up until the deadline, because I don't believe the Klopp press conference is actually before the deadline. I can't remember. But yeah, I think we'll be left with a bit of doubt in our head all the way up. So for me, I think I know, Sam, you made some very good counter arguments to this one, but I think Bruno is a very good placeholder for Salah. What about yourself, Sam?
Yeah, I can't argue with that, mate. I really can't. I could try, like I did earlier, but I think for what Luke's asking, he absolutely is.
Oh, and obviously, we've got Son, so I didn't think of him myself, but obviously Heung-min Son as well is a perfectly good placeholder as well. He doesn't have a double game week like Fernandes does, but yeah, we both bigged him up and we know how good he is, and he looks back to being fit, so I'd stick Son
What
on the list as well.
what game week is the Manchester United double? Is it 25?
I'll just whack the fixtures back up. Yeah, it's 25, so not this week, not this game week coming up, but the one after.
So if Salah wasn't back, you'd miss. So Salah would miss versus Leicester. And let's say you went with Bruno for that. So you get Bruno versus
He's got
who have
Burnley.
you not versus Burnley, which is a good fixture. And then what's Liverpool's 25
So
fixture?
Liverpool's 25 is Burnley.
Yeah, so you would potentially miss because the issue. Yeah, so I don't know. Luke might be coming at it from two ways. He might think, well, if Salah's going to miss the Leicester game, I'll miss him versus Burnley and get the Bruno double, and then bring Salah back in for the Norwich and Leeds double. That would scare me doing that.
No,
But
you're right, actually. Yeah.
if you're going for a 1 week punt, I haven't really thought about. I would just have Salah in and just stash him on the bench, and then use one of my sort of my bench players. But we're in a good position to do that because again we're on wildcard, so we're going to have a nice fresh bench of players that are playing. If you looked at my bench currently, you probably couldn't find anyone.
Yeah, in hindsight, I probably answered that question a bit incorrectly, to be honest, with Bruno, because yeah, you're not getting a double on the week that you'll need him. So yeah, I agree. I'd start with Salah, and then you'd better off just have a player coming off the bench. Maybe.
Yeah, but I think
Sorry,
I think
mate.
that's a good point though. The topic that's raised, if you're going to do that, you want to get Bruno's kind of two afterwards in there, and that's the risk you're going to take, and then you bring Salah back in. I mean, if that paid off, let's say Bruno got, I don't know, a couple of goals and an attack and an assist, or one goal and an assist over those three, and played 390 minutes versus Salah, who didn't even play versus Leicester. And let's say Salah just got an assist or something versus Burnley. You've come out of the deal all right, and then you move Bruno on to Mo Salah for the double and stick the armband on him. But Salah could go off against Burnley.
Yeah, no, very good point. And yeah, we bigged up Conor Gallagher earlier, right? His fixture in game week 24 is Norwich, so it might well be that Gallagher might be that bench pick that comes off for Salah for you. Yeah, I'm just talking myself into picking Conor Gallagher, I think, but he's got Norwich
I think
on
you
the
are,
first
mate.
fixture back.
There's a love affair there with Conor Gallagher.
And our final question from FPL Shenanigans. He asks us, I was wondering when the optimal time to wildcard would be. Would you use this as a tool to attack double game weeks, avoid blanks, or target fixture runs? I answered this question sort of when I explained why I played my wildcard. Really, for me, I don't know if this is right or wrong. It's just my opinion. But I play a wildcard when my team needs major repair, when I need to make 4 or 5 transfers in a game week. That's what drives me to play a wildcard. I don't really look at doubles and blanks and targeting fixture runs. I just look at the state of my team and how many transfers I need to make. And it just so happens that I'm in a position now where I've got to make 4 or 5, so it just makes sense to wildcard for me. How about yourself, mate?
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I think it's, a few things to back that theory up. I think, like you said, major surgery. Do you need quite a high minus to get a team that you want? Of course, naturally, you're going to look at the fixture list anyway when you do your wild card. You want to make sure you've got good players with favourable runs. That makes sense. But as we talked about earlier, if you sort of wild card off the back of blanks and doubles, it's not necessarily going to equal a return. We talked about these doubles and things like that earlier. I think the Liverpool one may be a little bit different, but Liverpool are a high quality side anyway. Yeah, I would have triple Liverpool regardless, unless they had loads of blanks. I'm going to have 3 Liverpool. So if you're chasing kind of double game weeks and things like that, it's no guarantee it's going to pay off. And then you might just want to chuck 2 of those players the week after when their normal fixtures return or whatever. So I think major surgery should probably dictate. Well, again, my opinion, just like you dictate when you use the wild card, but then have a look at what's coming up 4, 5, 6, 7 games ahead, and then try and plan accordingly. But me personally, I wouldn't change a team that I think is functioning fairly well based off of doubles and blanks and stuff like that. And with FanTeam, I think you can get that bench kind of looking fairly decent to help you out on blank game weeks for sure.
Yeah, and just another point on FanTeam really to target players for doubles. I think in FanTeam a hit is actually more worthwhile than in FPL if you compare the two. Because a lot of players in FanTeam, especially if they play 90 minutes, they start on a baseline of 3 points. So if you take a -4 for a double game week, the baseline that a player will get is 6 points. So it almost justifies a hit to do that. So yeah, I'd almost advocate for taking hits to target doubles rather than hitting the wildcard button, to be honest.
Yeah, if you hit an explosive player on a double game week, you're making up your points and then some, aren't you?
Well, that's it for our questions. And yeah, I don't have anything else to share, mate. Is there anything else you could think of you wanted to mention at all? I think that covers our teams and our thinking for the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, I think we've rattled off. We've done a good solid hour, haven't we? If not
Yeah.
a bit more. So I think all the listeners might be asleep, but I'm good to go, mate. And hopefully, here's to a good game week, and let's start reversing the negative that we've had for a few weeks.
Yeah, let's hope it was a bit better than the shit show we've just witnessed. All right, mate. Thanks again for your time, and yeah, thanks everyone for watching and listening. Be sure to give us a like on YouTube if you like what you saw, and subscribe to our channel. And yeah, we'll be back next week with some more FanTeam content. We might be releasing some bonus Sky content over the weekend as well for you all. Cheers.